the Adam and Eve story that I shared with the children earlier. That story led directly to my leaving the Lutheran Church. Aside from the many questionable details of that story, really a talking snake? Apples in that part of the world, which by the way is found on no map, the fundamental message of that story was that we are all born into evil and suffering because of a woman who lived at the dawn of time. It really bugged me that Adam never confessed and that women have to bear the burden of evil for the rest of time. Even more perplexing for me was not only why I should suffer as a result of something that some naked couple did way back when, but why I should feel so great about someone else paying the price for me. Being strung up on a cross 2,000 years ago, why should I feel so great about that? I did not let the door hit me on the way out and spent the next several decades determined to take responsibility for my own actions. Thank you very much. Now, what I've noticed in focusing on the reality of evil and suffering, acknowledged in all cultures and traditions, is that they seem to be classified in one of two ways. Either as man-made, result of a conscious or foolish choice. For example, Eve's decision to eat that apple and to offer it to Adam, or anyone's choice at any moment to give in to temptation, to give in to greed or sloth or fear, or any number of other vices which always seem to be a slippery slope to suffering. The second, evil has historically also been classified as sourced in something external, something mysterious like God's will. Examples of that would be when bad things happen to good people, people that we love and care about, illness and death, famines, inexplicable violent weather events like hurricanes, those things over which we are helpless. It's not uncommon to call those evil. Given how long evil has been a topic of conversation and consternation, hundreds of thousands of years, it's clearly been hard enough to get people to take responsibility for the former, take responsibility for their own free will, for them to wisely and ethically make good choices, those that are less likely to cause suffering. And also, when those unexpected, externally sourced things happen, those bad things, to respond to them gracefully, to recognize that in some cases our attitude really is the only thing that we may have control over. What I learned about evil from pop culture back in my day was that you generally could tell, right? You saw that on TV, if someone was good or bad, if someone was evil, based on the color of their hat or their shirt, for example. What color? Black. Black and white, right? The black shirt, the black hat was the evil one, the white shirt, the white hat was the good one. So it was easy. You could choose to avoid those people in the black hat, and you knew to wear a white hat yourself if you didn't want to be suspect. You could tell very easily who to chase down and who to punish. These days, it's not that easy, and I think it probably never really was. Today, as part of this month-long focus on evil, I want to explore the notion that it is not that simple. That evil is not that easily recognized, and that there just might be more to it than those two categories that I mentioned, man-made or of divine origin. I found myself really surprised this week in preparing for today to hear myself think that in far more cases than we might imagine, evil might actually also be something that we do inherit and wittingly or unwittingly contribute to. By taking another look at that Garden of Eden story and at the reality of our world today, I'm hoping that we will actually end up feeling more empowered to recognize evil, to understand its sources and impacts, and our ability to deal with it with less fear, with less frustration, and therefore more effectively. Per Jungian psychology, shadow and light, good and evil, are bound together. They are both realities, and this is a Taoist perspective as well. It is impossible to have one without the other, and that being the case, let's take a look at this thing called evil. Now, the seventh principle of Unitarian Universalism is the principle of what? Anybody? Interconnectedness. Yes, interconnectedness. The recognition that nothing exists, that nothing happens in a vacuum. That is our seventh principle. That each one of our seemingly mundane daily choices, even the smallest, does have an impact on this world, on our shared reality. And for most of us, I'm guessing, getting through the day with that in mind is in and of itself a tall order. Trying to anticipate the ripple effect on the environment, for example, of choosing to drive to church on Sunday morning rather than walk, or of choosing to eat a hamburger for lunch rather than vegan pad thai, or buying this thing versus that thing. That choice has often enough made my head spin, and on occasion made me stay in the house and skip eating altogether. So there's that. Consciousness is stressful. Free will is a source of tremendous anxiety. These days, with what science is showing us of the interwoven complexity of reality, with what we are seeing now, of the ongoing impact, for example, of the 16th century doctrine of discovery, which empowered Christians to discover and claim and exploit the Americas for the glory of God? Or the ongoing impact of this in this country of slavery, which officially, supposedly ended in 1865? With what we are seeing of the impact, the ongoing impact of institutionalized patriarchal support for predatory misogynism, applied not only to women but to this earth, we all know a lot more about evil today, more about suffering than ever before. Certainly more than we'd ever want to know. We are learning that in some ways we have inherited a mess. And it's not okay anymore. It's not justifiable anymore to say, well, I didn't cause that particular problem, so it's not mine to fix. Thanks to, among other things, the 24/7 news cycle, we are recognizing systems of evil, sufferings on a far greater level than we ever imagined. And slowly we are realizing that these sufferings cannot be attributed anymore to something as simple as any one person's evil intent or poor choice. Just as it can't be explained away by some mysterious external force, making us pawns in a divine tragedy. My first inkling that there just might be something to the idea of inherited responsibility came when I revisited what I was taught about the Industrial Revolution. Now, what I was taught in school not that long ago was that it was celebrated as a highlight of human ingenuity. The Industrial Revolution was celebrated for advancing technological and economic and political prowess, for developing this country, making a lot of people rich, or at least feel rich by virtue of their ability to acquire cheap goods. It wasn't until many years later that I learned it also turned skilled human beings into mere cogs, tied to unsafe assembly lines for inhumane periods of time, for the mass production of goods invented to serve an invented need. In the process, poisoning the air, the soil, the water upon which all of life depends, poisoning body, minds, and spirits. Along those lines, who knew to anticipate the repercussions of the pursuit of the American dream? A chicken in every pot, a Chevy in every driveway. That sounds good, right? I mean, who wouldn't want that? That dream inspired and continues to inspire hundreds of thousands of people the world over to try to come to America, my parents included, right? It keeps those already here, those who have made it, patriotic and self-congratulatory in their accomplishment, determined to never lose their hold on the good life. And it keeps those still striving to achieve the good life, working 2 or 3 minimum wage jobs, grateful for the opportunity, focused in hope, hanging in there. The thing is, when those exciting innovations, when those dreams, those golden opportunities for the future arose, nobody anticipated at what cost those advantages. Nobody bothered to ask, apparently, on whose back our comfort, on whose back our wealth and our hope, or to ask what about the children, or our children's children, or how will this affect the earth? They didn't ask those questions back then, but now we are asking because we are noticing. We are waking up to the realization that evil is not some separate or imagined force. It's not something that we can discount or ignore anymore as superstition, because we see its signs all around us these days. We see the suffering. We see the poverty, the racism, the classism, and oh yeah, we see that sexism. And let me tell you, many of us feel deeply and personally the divisiveness, the physical, the psychological, economic, and spiritual violence. You can smell it. You can smell the fear everywhere. And I'll go so far as to say that as a society, we reek of fear at this time. We see so many faces of evil on TV every day, just can't avoid it. And in our lowest moments, I'll claim this for myself, in my lowest moments, I might even look for it in another. And if we're honest, we just might see it in the mirror as well. Because everything is connected. Because we're realizing that our actions and our inactions do have an impact on this world. That up until recently, only mystics and science fiction writers could imagine. Even though the term evil has long been addressed theologically, at least since the development of that story about the troublesome apple, I wonder how many people here, when you heard that this would be the topic for today, how many of you thought about the Cupertino apple, evil, connected somehow or other with that story, right? How many of you thought about the upcoming election? It's hard not to, right? It's hard not to. I want you to know, first and foremost, that the monthly themes were set years ago. I had no idea that this would be so timely. The word evil is generally not one of our Unitarian Universalist favorites, theologically or otherwise. And I had no idea it would have found its way into everyday conversation as it has. That we would be using that word so freely by virtue of this election. Now, I first thought about talking about the idea of inherited evil relative to the intersectionality of racism and classism and sexism and homophobia and the criminal justice system. Or in relationship to climate change, all the damage that was done before we were born. And how sustainability in the context of already being beyond the tipping point cannot mean getting back to normal. It has to mean very quickly learning to adjust to live with the damage that's already been done. The damage that we have inherited. So that's what I wanted to talk about in greater depth, but it's become clear that that dusty old word, evil, is inspiring people on all ends of the political spectrum. to use it as a way to separate themselves from the candidate they most fear, and more particularly and disconcertingly from the people who support those candidates, many of whom are neighbors and co-workers and family members and even members of this community. As if everyone else all of a sudden was wearing black hats. As if we could tell what sufferings, what fears lie in one another's hearts. There have been so many conversations here lately, from the pulpit and in other venues as well, affirming this congregation's commitment to engage respectfully with all of these differences. Affirming how hard it can be when so much is at stake, when everyone is so justifiably angry and frustrated and afraid. When it looks like we're all just clutching at our hats, which we hold to be white, but which others may see as black, clutching at them, lest the election results knock them off our heads and knock us to God knows where. It seems the only options are to hold our ground, to keep silent, or to insist upon the evil of the other, to blame those guys, as if it were that simple. What I was surprised to learn this week is that the story, the mythology of inherited evil and suffering can actually serve as a bridge. So bear with me on this. That story can serve as a bridge because it reminds us that one way or another, whether we fess up, whether we try to be responsible about our choices as Eve did, or whether we choose to blame someone else, as was Adam's choice, we cannot rely on the benevolent force, some benevolent force, to come back and welcome us back to paradise. One way or another, the deed is done, mythologically or realistically. We are outside the garden. The damage has been done, folks, and now we are all here outside the gates of paradise, and either we take seriously each other's experience of that, each other's sufferings, and work together to survive under these circumstances, to give our children and their children and this earth a fair shot, or we go down together. It's become pretty common in elections of all kinds, unfortunately, for candidates and their supporters to focus more on mudslinging, more on tearing down their opponents than articulating clearly their vision, what would make them ideal for the position. This has been taken to an absurd level in this election, and many would say by both candidates, on both camps. Reports of depression and anxiety are on the rise. Sleeplessness, nightmares among Democrats and Republicans and those who don't find hope in either candidate or in this system. The world is watching, slack-jawed and with bated breath, and I don't know what to say to my friends and family in other countries in defense, because this is terrifying. One of the conversations that's come up as a result of the high, or rather low, drama of this election centers on the need to recognize that no matter what hat we think we are wearing, no matter who ends up in the White House, we are going to have to deal with a lot of people who feel deeply that they have been disenfranchised, that their sufferings, that their fears have not been heard, that they have been unjustly cast aside, cast out, and cut off from the good life. And we're going to have to deal with that together. Admitting that we are in this together, that we have inherited a mess, and that this democratic system, in this democratic system, we are all responsible for fixing things, for taking responsibility for the problems and sufferings that we ourselves may not have created. Admitting that just may allow us to get through this, to connect with hope, to appreciate that we're actually not all that different from each other, as we may think, in terms of our sufferings and fears, in terms of our hopes. We're not that different. We all want to feel safe. We all want to feel valued. We all want to feel taken care of and on the path to a better life. Welcomed back into our idea of the good life. In closing, by thinking of evil as something so easily identifiable via a black hat or a white hat, a red affiliation or a blue affiliation, we run the risk not only of denying the very real presence, the very real impact and potential of evil within and among us, we actually run the risk of empowering it. Because when we scapegoat each other, when we turn on each other, when we turn our backs on each other and on the sufferings and yearnings within and among us, we have already lost. And evil has won. And I think that's an apple worth chewing on. Amen.